Well, it's my great pleasure and privilege to host the final session with Caroline, who has been on our conferences before and is now closing in on her second year as the CEO of the preeminent crypto exchange in Australia, BTC Markets. So welcome, Caroline.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be back.
So I'd like to start just by having you perhaps recount, for the benefit of those who weren't present when you appeared before, a little bit about your journey, how you rose to the ascendant position at BTC Markets, because you've worked in Europe and other places, made your way to Oz, made your way to the exchange. How did that happen? Made your way to crypto, because you also worked in several positions outside the digital asset space before.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for that. So I started off my career in financial services, working for a private client broker house in Dublin back in the day. And I kind of date myself. This is the time when it was all paper stock certificates. And so the settlement cycle was me working in operations, filling up envelopes, manila envelopes with stock certificates and writing all the details on, and 3-day settlement cycle and all the rest of it. And now I'm in crypto. But the intermittent journey was actually redoing the exact same project, if you like, many iterations of the same project, because that first project I worked on was to explain to people that the movement of stock certificates to the digital representation on a computer screen doesn't mean anything scary or bad has happened to your stock certificates. They still exist. It's now just a digital representation. And I basically have been doing that same digital project the whole way through my career, unbeknownst to myself. So it started off there and really got to understand the flow of financial markets, as I say, from that very much paper-based kind of setup, and then moved to a US investment bank and worked in operations with them in Dublin, and then moved with them to Singapore and had a fantastic time working in prime brokerage throughout the global financial crisis, which was such a learning curve. And I could remember at the time thinking, you know, the stress and the pressure that everyone was under, thinking that this is, you know, it can't get much tougher than this. And so I decided to find out how tough it could get, because I left the bank and then set up my own business, running strategy and PR for businesses related to fintech, blockchain. This is in Singapore in about 2015, I think it was. And I think, like everybody, you know, it's only when you actually take that step and you actually see what it is to run your own shop that you really realize the challenges that come from it, you know. And I think that I certainly was naive enough to think that working in an investment bank was enough. It was a good training, but it was nowhere near enough for the real pressure of what was to come. So I grew the business in Asia Pacific. I really caught the wave as it was really lifting, particularly in Singapore, and have a really great network there still. And I've got, you know, really fond memories of my time there. But likewise, set up shop here in Melbourne. In now sunny Melbourne, because we're now in our summer, and BTC Markets were one of my clients. So when I eventually sold out my business, BTC Markets came knocking not shortly afterwards and said, "Hey, have you any interest in coming in and working with us as a CEO?" And I jumped with 2 feet. And it was a really interesting time. It was about this time 2 years ago that those discussions were taking place, and the crypto markets were only just re-emerging, reawakening again to what we've seen as the bull run over the last couple of years. And so I joined at a really interesting time, and so have kind of been holding on as for dear life as the whole thing has gone where we thought it would go, which is to say, you know, bananas. I think that's Latin for it.
Timing is everything. So you obviously got in on the tail end of the crypto winter, just as things were starting to pop. But no doubt there were challenges, right, when you came there. What would you say were the biggest challenges that you had to overcome to get BTC Markets to where it is today?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of them, and this is true, I think, for any business where you go from a startup to a scale up, and it's as much to do with the internal culture, the internal expectations, both as a manager, as an employee, as a shareholder, as a director, of those transitions from start to scale up. And along the way, you know, members of the team who had been with us, you know, in the early days of the business, you know, struggled with that transition. And I think it's a very normal, very human thing to do, where you go from a smaller, you know, buddy business, if you like, into something that's got a lot more rigor and oversight and opportunity. And, you know, for some people it's great, and others wanted to move on and try something different. So that was probably the first big challenge I had, was to try and help people make the decisions on where they wanted to sit on that spectrum, and then simultaneously then start to hire in and to grow to get the talent in the door. And even 2 years ago, 18 months ago, people still weren't 100% enamored on what they thought was going to happen with cryptocurrency, and there was still an awful lot of negative media out there around what cryptocurrency is and what direction it was going in. So there was a lot of communication, there was a lot of outreach. I had to raise the public profile of both of the exchange and ourselves, so people understood this wasn't, kind of some murky underworld, that we were part of a legitimate, shift in financial services, a global shift in financial services towards this more digital models. And really happy that with the team that we've managed to build over the last 2 years, agree with that and come from a wide spectrum of different backgrounds, because obviously there's nobody with a deep crypto career because it hasn't been around long enough. So we've brought people in from hotel management, we brought people in from, we've a chef working with us, we've had lots of different backgrounds, but we were looking at skills and attributes that can't be taught, and brought them into the business, and we've just absolutely mushroomed since. So it's been really good. But if I may, the thing that I'm probably most proud of is our involvement with moving the needle on crypto regulation here in Australia. And that's something that we've been very passionate about and very happy to share more on, but very passionate to have been involved in that, and very pleased to see where it is today, where it's moving to today.
Yeah, speak to me about that, because you've been quoted actually in conjunction with some of the recent, at least draft legislation that your Senate had passed, I think back in October, right? And so I assume that you were very actively working behind the scenes to move that agenda forward. But what exactly were the regulatory hurdles that BTC Markets face, and how would this pending legislation resolve some of those gating issues?
Yeah, great. So there was very little regulation is probably the answer to that. We were regulated and still are under AML KYC, which is absolutely fine. And we have every single client on our platform has fulfilled all AML KYC obligations that was recognized before it became law. But that was pretty much it. And coming from financial services, I've been regulated by the Monetary Authority in Singapore. So I was used to there being a lot of oversight, a lot of rigor, a lot of reporting, and you come in and there's nothing. Cryptocurrency wasn't recognized and still isn't recognized in Australia as a financial asset. So it doesn't fall under any financial services regulation. And I think for some of our competitors, they saw that as a great opportunity, perhaps, to just absolutely go gangbusters. And I, on the other hand, and the founders of BTC Markets instead looked at that and went, that's a real risk to the business. It's a real risk to our development. And even things like obtaining insurance, very challenging, because there's no regulatory framework for us to point to. They have to really do very deep due diligence, not just on ourselves, but on the whole business, on the shareholders, and everybody, to get that level of comfort, because we've nothing to point to. And similarly then for institutional businesses trying to come in and get access to crypto in Australia, very challenging, because it really was, a dearth of anything to kind of hang your hook on. So for us, when we were looking at the opportunities to grow and develop, and we looked at particularly say around derivatives, and we understand that derivatives are a financial product, irrespective of what the underlying asset class is. But because we couldn't get, as an exchange, we couldn't get any regulation at all, we weren't able to list derivatives as an example. So we're like, right, we have to get ourselves involved in this. There's too many reasons why we can't. Even things like custody, there was no obligations on us to do custody or anything. It's just, you think of it. And now we've traded, since our inception, the first 7 years of our business, we traded about $10 billion. In the last year of our business, we've done another $10 million. So you can see the growth trajectory is just insane. And for us, we've custodied with BitGo, who US company, third party, right? And they're very well known. But there's nothing here locally for us to custody with, and we're deeply concerned about that. So the long version of all of that is that what's coming in now is an approach to tackle all of those big issues. So even just today, there was an announcement made that they're going to propose that crypto exchanges have to onshore all of the client's assets, which creates an issue for us in that bigger US based, then creates that opportunity. So now
Yeah.
custodians have to look here locally to say, okay, there's definitely going to be a market for it. So they have to do something about it. From what we can understand too, what they're, we had looked at the existing market licensing regime that existed for traditional financial services. And it was square peg in a round hole. Even things around, say, settlement, they were talking about clearing houses and 3-day turnarounds and everything else. We settle instantaneously, peer to peer. There was no need for clearing. And so none of that could function within crypto. So they're saying, okay, rather than try and squeeze you in, we're going to write bespoke. And that's just an absolute dream for us. So we now get to, but this isn't that, as I said at the start, I sat working in prime brokerage through the GFC, and that taught me a lot. That taught me a lot about leverage, for starters, and it taught me a lot about the importance of having really rigorous and well-maintained risk frameworks. And so it was with Bank of America who came in. I was with Merrill at the time. It was Bank of America who came in. And so to see, I was only a minnow in the conversations doing all that was going on, but to see how that all flowed through and where perhaps the risk frameworks weren't applied with the same rigor, I take all that learning with me. I take all that learning. And so now when we look at talking about doing the tokens that we list, like there currently is no framework, no guidelines, nothing. Every exchange can list whatever they decide to list. And we've taken, I suppose, a very conservative approach. We only have, I think, 18, 20 assets, something like that on the platform. We don't have Dogecoin. We don't have Shiba Coin. We don't have any of the meme coins. And that was an active decision made by us because we would have questions around some of those projects, particularly Dogecoin. Anyone who's been around crypto for a long time, right, knows Dogecoin's history. And our feeling on it is that there needs to be a greater responsibility on exchanges to not just be getting out for a cash grab off of their retail clients. There needs to be a responsibility on exchanges to go, okay, you've listed it, so you're standing over that project. You're happy enough with that project. And there is enough of that perhaps sense of responsibility, both in the individual investor too, caveat emptor, but the venues that they're going to, where there's an expectation that they're somehow being looked after or that there's something that's going to, not always the case. So we skew very conservative in a wildly non-conservative asset class. That yes, that gives you a sense of kind of what our thinking is on a lot of these different issues.
That's admirable, but I do think it's also good business sense because, at Linqto we have the same conversations, right? It's very easy, especially in markets that are at the kind of trajectory that they're in. And I speak both of crypto as well as the equities markets, both private and public today, right? They are in supercharged mode because you've got significant segments of the population for many valid reasons, I dare say, but definitely in risk on mode. And so you see a significant amount of product, a significant amount of trading, and a significant amount of pricing up, right? And so it's important in those environments to exercise some level of discretion about what you do, what you list, and what you don't. And we are as sensitive to about what we don't list as what we do list. Because at the end, what we say to ourselves is, we want to make sure that our customers, our members, make money. Because if they don't, and if they lose money in droves, they're not going to be our customers for very long, right? And so it's as simple as that. And I think you share that same basic outlook. And I commend that. What I have to say though, Caroline, that I kind of envy you, your regulatory environment, the way you describe it, right? Because at least here in the States thus far, there's sort of been this almost presumptive instinct of, if there's an absence of a regulatory framework, let's just squeeze these people into the framework we already have. Whereas you seem to be saying there you've got ample latitude to actually work with your regulators at drafting a regulatory framework that's a bespoke and fits you, right? And makes sense in your context. They're not, for example, trying to regulate you in exactly the same way they regulate the ASX, because they
Right.
recognize you're not a securities exchange,
Right.
right?
That's exactly it. And also that the infrastructure that we work on is not traditional.
Yes.
Blockchain is not traditional. It's a new paradigm. It's very, very different.
Yeah.
And to be fair to the Senator Bragg in particular, whose committee looked after all of this, and they went on a very steep learning curve over a very short period of time. And I really do have to commend them. And I don't usually get a chance to say well done to politicians, but well done to these particular senators who across the party, different parties here, who took it on. I mean, to decide that, okay, cryptocurrency is something they were going to look at. And keep in mind, not only are they looking at cryptocurrencies and CBDCs they've announced, but they've also mandated a look at DAOs, how to regulate and legislate for DAOs in Australia, which, as far as I can make out, is very advanced compared to a lot of our international peers. Like that's, I was taken aback when I saw that. I thought that would be, a dream down the road.
Exactly.
But so it's to have that level of ambition, but also that level of awareness that they listened. They consulted very well with the industry, all across the positives and the naysayers, and took it all on board and came away and went, okay, this is what we're going to come up with. And again, today they've kind of given us a really clear time frame on when all this is going to come through. Now there's an election coming up later on this year or next year here in Australia. And I mean, I don't know what impact that may necessarily have. And I was going to ask about it today, about what impact potentially on that legislative timetable. But my view is that cryptocurrency is apolitical, in ignoring the foundations of Bitcoin and the white paper and all the kind of libertarian connotations that go with it. But I'm talking about, in my view, cryptocurrency is one of a bundle of digital assets, and digital assets are neutral.
Yeah.
They're the technology solution. So whether it's party A, party B, or whoever is in government, the need for Australia and other countries to pick up the pace on where digital assets are going will remain a constant. And so what they're proposing is quite prudent anyway, like it's a cross-party kind of framework that they're pushing forward. And yeah, I can't believe we're actually at this point. If somebody had said to me in January, this is what you were talking about come December, I would have been thrilled to bits. And I can only imagine now what we're going to be talking about at the end of next year.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing. So, I mean, it seems to me that clearly regulation isn't going to be a barrier to your growth. Let's talk a little bit then about where you see some of those growth opportunities. Is it in you listing more product? Is it you in expanding your domestic market? Is it you in changing your product mix so that you have maybe more institutional business as those adopt, the asset class more? Or is it all of those things and then some other things?
Yeah, it's probably a bit of everything. I think we are probably trying to do that dreaded thing of boiling the ocean, isn't that what they call it? So for us, well, the easiest thing now for us is actually listing new tokens. We've been working over the course of this year to work actually, as I say, with BitGo. And with that solution, we can now list new tokens at a much faster clip than previously. So we'd kind of focused all our attention on getting that out. And it will turn what was a 3-month project into a week or two when you're listing new chains. So that's fantastic. And we're also launching our mobile app. Our mobile app will be coming out soon as well. And so from a retail point of view, those are the main things that they look for. We've got partnerships to come to be announced with major payment providers, well-known international payment providers. Those deals are done and locked away, but we just haven't gone public with them yet. And that, again, is probably talks to how there is a recognition for an ease of access for people who are so used to working within fintech, if you like, that needs to transition into cryptocurrency. It's always been a bit clunky here in Australia because of issues with getting access to banking and all kinds of things.
So these are deals that are basically meant to solve the problem of fiat on and off ramps for the exchange?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So that's coming through. And that's going to be significant on the retail side. Then on the institutional side, for us, we're already, I know this sounds quite, but this matters for institutional clients. So we've already ISO certified. We're going for SOC 2 compliance, which is, as far as I know, would put us in one of only a handful of crypto companies and exchanges worldwide who are at that degree of scrutiny, because we are acutely alive to the opportunity with institutional flow. And the issue in Australia, and the issue for our exchange and other Australian exchanges, is there isn't necessarily a suitable on and off ramp exchange locally for institutional. So we will be able to announce our insurance soon. We will have suitable compliance, recognized standards are in place. We've got third-party custody ready to go. And we're also working with partners in decentralized finance and DeFi to kind of address some of those issues, particularly around derivatives, going short on positions and so on, which will be rolled out as we move into 22. So that for us is the focus. Our secret sauce, our strength lies in our technology. We've got a fantastic API that kind of was, is a peer of the international exchanges, which we haven't really been able to do much with, only because the market hadn't caught up to us yet, if that sounds, without being too facetious. Retail clients don't care about an API. Institutional clients, on the other hand, the low latency, that's the thing that they care about, and that's what we have, that's what we've built. So we really see that opportunity, and that's where we're gunning for 22, alongside what we have on our retail piece. But as I say, that kind of the things that the retail look for, very, very different from the institutional side. And here we have a lot, here in Melbourne, for example, we've got I think it's a $3 trillion pension or super fund, as they call them here, industry, private pensions that need homes to go to. But you cannot move any volume of that kind of size into a crypto industry, which has in total only got 2 trillion itself. So you can't move into that yet.
But when you look at the unexchanged liquidity, that's a fraction of that 2 trillion. How do you even clear and settle?
You move that. So for us, then it's about, but you have to, it's like that movie, like The Field, is that what we call it? Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. So we're building it because we know that they're going to come. And it's kind of drawing on the experience of myself and others in our team. We've actually had a lady who just recently joined our team to set up the institutional side of the business. And she's had 20 years in Wall Street. She was at Morgan, she was at Goldman. So she brings all that knowledge and experience with her into Australia. And we're going to, kind of crack open her brain and take out all the good stuff and kind of build our business then around that. And other really good, kind of models that we've seen out there. But that's the plan for 22.
That's exciting. On a today basis, Caroline, what's the mix roughly if you had to sort of slice your trading volume between retail and institutional today?
I'd probably, maybe 50-50, maybe more on the institutional side. We do already have like fund clients on board, and what I would classify as non-retail on board. So there is already a trading action there that kind of fits that bill. And I know that they're likewise really hungry for more. I think arbitrage strategies are really, really popular because of the fact it's a global market. So you plug into the Australian exchange with like one guy who's in, I don't want to name the markets that they're in because I don't want to disclose where their trading strategy is, but even in the markets, perhaps say in the Middle East and other places where they don't necessarily have the highest profile globally in crypto, but the arbitrage opportunity exists. So to exchange in the US, exchange in Australia, exchanges dotted throughout the rest of the world. And if you're running, software on those strategies, you're done. Like you can set and forget and off you go. We're talking to one client who works maybe 5 to 10 hours a week. God bless him. The dream. He just all the software does it for him.
I had read somewhere that the crypto adoption in Australia is only 15%, which struck me as being terribly low, certainly a lot lower than I had imagined it to be. And is that correct? And if so, doesn't that mean that even on the retail side, you've got ample opportunity for growth?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they say it's about 15%, but the numbers can vary depending on the
time of day and whether people are drinking or not.
No comment on the drinking, but yes, yeah, definitely that. But it's what what I have seen there this year, I mean, well, our numbers even paint that picture, right? That it took us 7 years to get to our first 10 million and 12 months to get to our next.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'd say we're probably tipping maybe 15 now, really, to be honest, looking at the numbers that have come through. And, if you are looking at a 50-50 split, say between institutional and retail, that's retail doing 5 billion over the course of this year. And there are other exchanges out there in Australia. It's not just ourselves, that they're trading with. So it's certainly captured the public imagination. And I think that's probably part of why you've seen that from the regulators, from the legislators rather, that the legislative bodies here have gone, we need to do something about this. But we also saw a announcement from Commonwealth Bank, who are the largest bank. I think they've got over 40% of the market share in Australia. And they have announced that they will now allow their clients to buy, sell, hold a selected number of cryptocurrencies through their banking app, which is really intriguing. Because rather than, as you would assume, that it would sit within their trading side of the business, of the banking business, instead it's with the bank. So what that means is that everyday Aussies will now get used to seeing Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP alongside their Aussie dollar.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
that's a real mindset shift.
Yeah.
And in a way, I kind of wonder for CBA, have they heard of DeFi? Because the question is that if you suddenly introduce and get your customer base super comfy with seeing crypto alongside fiat,
Yeah.
you're really
they want to earn the same interest that they do on their fiat balances.
And here's the thing too, is that they're only allowing them to buy, sell, hold. They can't transfer it out. They can just move it in and out, in and out, in and out. And which, does also, I suppose, in some respects, doesn't encourage the full utility of their crypto. Yeah. And people get a bit frustrated with that over time. But we'll see. It's certainly going to, I think it helps, kind of move the needle in people's minds around what cryptocurrency is about, not just with CBA clients, but also with other banks locally.
Yeah. Well, maybe next year you'll tell me that you solved the problem because you've acquired CBA and just integrated them into the exchange.
They wish. They wish. Welcome to CBA.
I have two final questions for you, Caroline. One is, would you mind just explaining to those of us in the States how exactly you're using Ripple's ODL solution?
Oh, sure.
In your operation, what that's for?
Absolutely. So we partnered with Ripple a couple of years ago now. Don't make me age myself. I can't actually recall when it was. I know by the time I came on board 2 years ago that the project was well underway. And so we're the Australian exchange partner for them. And in particular, the main flows that we've seen have been from Australia across to the Philippines, although I know that there are a number of different fiat ramps being opened. I'm not sure what I'm at liberty to disclose or not to disclose. And our engagement with the Ripple team over that time has just been fantastic. But it's also a really easy story for people to get their heads around what cryptocurrency is about. And so when I get to talk to clients or even talk to family members, and people substitute Bitcoin for crypto, and I'm like, no, there's more to it, and talk to them about XRP and about how the process works, how quick and easy it is to facilitate that transfer. So I mean, our part of the whole experience is that the Singapore entity puts the trade in to transmit XRP across to the Filipino entity or any other market. So it all goes through our exchange, and obviously it's done in milliseconds and all the rest of it. And when I try to explain to people just how quickly it can be done, their minds are blown. And my sister-in-law actually is Filipino. And when I try to explain to her that rather than it taking days and costing a fortune, click a button, it's done. It's
so
fantastic.
This allows folks in the Philippines to basically take their local pesos and invest in a crypto that's trading on your exchange in Aussie dollar equivalent.
Well, we even actually,
because it's being quoted in a trading pair that's got an AUD right on the other end of the pair. So they've got to convert their pesos basically into AUD to trade the pair. Is that, and then they use that ODL?
Yeah, so they'll come into the partner here, and they'll say, I want to transfer 100 Aussie dollar into the Filipino peso. And the guy will go, great, and he'll tap, 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 and he'll show him a number and go, that's the rate, that's how much the other person will receive, just like you would in any FX.
Yeah.
And then they go, great. And so what they'll do is then the partner here will book a trade with us for 100 Aussie dollar of XRP to be sent across to the Philippines, to their partner there. And then the Philippines partner will then receive the XRP and will pay it out and pay us out on the other side. So it's quick and easy, really straightforward. It's savings for everybody, and a really obvious and clear way for people to get their heads around what is crypto and what's the purpose of XRP. And so for us, actually, and it was even said to us by one of our international traders. He was saying actually that it's remarkable the percentage of volume of XRP on our platform is unlike what he has seen in other exchanges. That XRP seems to have really caught the imagination of the slice of the crypto community here in Australia. And certainly for us, I mean, it's consistently in our top 3, jostling for position between Bitcoin and Ethereum. In terms of overall popularity, I think people just get it. They understand the idea behind it. It just seems
it's wonderful because you've just cited a use case that speaks to the actual utility, right, of the token. So it's not just a mere speculative asset. It's actually being used in a real life business use case to solve a real world problem.
Yes, exactly.
Which would take CBA 10 days to solve, by the way, to do that same transfer you just talked about.
And that's it. It's like you can simultaneously trade and get utility.
Yeah,
that's great.
100%.
Yeah.
So my last question for you is, next year when we speak, what is BTC Markets going to be able to point to and boast about, Caroline?
I don't want to jump the gun. I will have news around regulation. That's all I can say on that one, and I can't go any further than that. I can also say that we will be public on those high profile partnerships. Wow. And I think for us as a business, we have always said, we can't do this on our own. We need to partner with the best out there. Our specialization is being a cryptocurrency exchange, and we're really good at that, but we're not very good at all the rest of the stuff. And we could be okay at it, but we don't want to just be okay. So we've worked really hard to prove ourselves to be trustworthy for these big mega brands to partner with. And a lot of that is to do with the listings that we have, the compliance culture that we've maintained, the rigor that we've put around it, and the focus of the business. And that's paid off. And I think in 22, when we have this next conversation, Joe, and I'll be able to share with you some of the payoff of that. But it really has been like the hare and the tortoise. And in crypto land, we've been the tortoise. But yeah, hopefully
not for long, not for much longer.
Not for much longer. Thank
you.
Listen, if you've got 2 shareholders I've talked to.
I'm going to be excitedly, looking at your press releases between now and a year from now, and I'm sure you'll have some exciting developments well before then. So congratulations again, Caroline, on your magnificent leadership over there, and I wish you all the very best in achieving those goals. I have no doubt you're going to get to them. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Caroline, you can't. Thank you, Joe. But Caroline, you can't leave us yet.
Oh, okay.
You have two more tasks.
Okay.
The first one is to give us your prediction for the most seismic change that's going to happen in 2022.
Cryptocurrency will be fully mainstream. Fully mainstream. All of the banks will be public about their interest in crypto. All of the banks will be public about the crypto trading that they do. All of the banks will have a crypto account option available alongside your option. The banks will be scrambling to get on board, and simultaneous to that, DeFi will be cackling in the wings, going, ready for it. And I think it'll go definitely mainstream, and I'm personally very bullish on the opportunities within decentralized finance. And I say that as the CEO of a centralized exchange. I know the irony there, but we're partnering with a number of different DeFi projects specifically because we can see how awesome it is going to be. Yeah, so that's my prediction. Was that your prediction, Kareem? What have you predicted?
No, my prediction is that we will see a press release between Linqto and BTC in 2022.
Oh, you're very good. I look forward.
Yes, me too, Carol.